Yeah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my brothers and sisters in Islam. We give praise and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, inshallah. We're gonna look at a video from Rabbi Tovia Singer about the mistakes in the Bible, the New Testament, mistakes in the New Testament. So let's look at what Tovia Singer will say. So let's look at what we see. Okay. I'm gonna play. Okay. I think the network is very bad somehow, but
The reason why Christianity is a false religion is not because Matthew was a shlemazel, not because Matthew is just riddled with errors. It is a false religion because its core teachings are false, are opposed by the Jewish scriptures, and the writings of Matthew and the other gospels and the writers of the epistles that are canonized, Paul, misquote the Jewish scriptures deliberately.
Caller, you are live on the air. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from. You're live on the air.
Hi, I'm Lockie.
Lockie, welcome.
I have a really cool question for the rabbi. Isaiah 44:7, God warns us that if anybody wants to pretend to be him, to just ask if they know history, and they get it wrong, then they're obviously false. Doesn't this kind of like prove the Testament where they continually get history wrong? Like in Matthew, where they have 23:34, they get the wrong Zechariah, and in Acts 7, they get the wrong amount of people that went down to Egypt, and they get David of feel it wrong. And even in Luke, where they say the city of David, Jesus was born in the city of David, where he was actually born in Bethlehem. Doesn't it kind of like prove the Isaiah 44? And wouldn't it be simple to fix these errors? And why haven't they fixed in 1,700 years?
Viewers don't read realize how interesting your question is. You picked, for example, Matthew 23, you said verse 34, but it's actually verse 35. So Matthew makes a mistake. What we are told in Matthew 23 is Jesus is speaking to Jews, and he says, on you should come all the righteousness that was shed on earth. I mean, you're responsible for every murder on earth, from the blood of the righteous Abel, who was the first victim of murder. So the Jews are responsible for killing Abel. How? Of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, who you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. So that's actually 23:35. So I'll just make it easy for you, the viewers. How many Zechariahs do you know of in the Hebrew Bible? I mean, can you name... Well, I know there's one you can name, right? Like, who would that be if you had to go? You'd say, that's the author of the book of Zechariah, okay? And that's Zechariah the son of Berechiah, okay? Can you name a second person with the name Zechariah? Well, if you could, that's pretty good. That's like Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada, who actually is murdered, who actually is assassinated. Another Zechariah was a very short-lived king of the northern kingdom. So there are a handful of Zechariahs in Tanakh, but everybody knows one of them, and Matthew knew that one, and he got it wrong, which means Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, was not the one who was murdered by the temple, by the altar, as it turns out on Yom Kippur. Was not the right guy. He actually made a mistake, and it really is Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada. So you're right, he made an error. You asked a question. Very aware of Matthew 20, verse 35, and this is what makes it incredibly interesting. Luke 11:51, that's a parallel passage. It's Zechariah, the son of who? Bingo, it's not there. Why? The Luke, whoever wrote the book went, oops, let's just select and delete. Now, let me say this. It's a mistake. People can make that mistake. There's actually a Targum. It's not the famous Targum, but there's a later Jewish Targum where Targum means a translation to Aramaic where that mistake is made. It's Matthew's made a mistake. The other mistake you find, like, where are the patriarchs buried? Well, whoever wrote the book of Luke Acts thought that the tomb of the patriarchs is in Shechem. a very well-known place. Really well-known, but it got it wrong because it wasn't in Shechem, which is modern day. They call it Nablus. But the Tomb of the Patriarchs, I visited many times. I take my tourists there, and it's in Hebron. It's very well known. In fact, Herod the Great, that means the one who built the Second Temple, he had built the famous sitting around it. So it's a really important place. Right. So the Christian Bible is riddled with mistakes. I think this is very important, very significant in the following way. The fact that there are mistakes in the Christian Bible, like these kinds of, it does tell us of human origin of the book. It's a humongous mistake. And the reason is Zechariah the Suyada is the last person in the Tanakh to be murdered. The last person. So Abel's the first, Zechariah and Yehoiada the last. So that's bookshelf murders. From a scholar's perspective, this is really interesting because this tells us that the author of Luke corrected Matthew. That's really interesting. And yet, the artifacts, Matthew's error, are for all the world to see. And it's very clear that Luke is correcting Matthew. Now, this goes on a lot. You know, Matthew and Luke are both correcting Mark. If Mark says something that's awkward, if Matthew in the Eucharist and Mark place eating the bread before, Luke is going to correct that in Luke 22 and place the drinking of the wine before eating the bread. He's going to correct it. Just going to correct the Synoptic Gospels and have Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus prepare and take care of the spices for Jesus' body before the Sabbath, because they know very well that why would you put spices with the body after it's been in the tomb? So this is going on all over the place. The reason why Christianity is a false religion is not because Matthew was a schlemazel, not because Matthew is just riddled with errors. It is a false religion because its core teachings are false, are opposed by the Jewish scriptures, and the writings of Matthew and the other gospel authors and the of the canonized, especially the letters of Paul, misquote the Jewish scriptures deliberately. These are not errors. These are not mistakes. These are criminal corruptions, frauds. I'm talking about the mens rea, the guilty mind. These were done deliberately to Matthew chapter 11, Galatians chapter 8. It's all over the place. And that's what's very interesting. But as it turns out, the errors that we find in Luke, for instance, where is the tomb of the patriarchs, that's very, very valuable because there are people, well, I'm not going to name them, I don't want to embarrass people, but there are a lot of Christian New Testament scholars that seek to convey how was so intimately knowledgeable of the land around. He knew where the sycamore trees were. He knew what kind of coinage they use. Really? Like to get Hebron's a really important place in the Bible, in the book of Genesis. Well, you're not going to find Jerusalem, okay? But Hebron, I mean, understand how important these cities are in the book of Genesis. Lahavdil, this is like the difference between New York and Los Angeles, the two most important cities in the United States. This is not, not knowing that Long Island technically is not part of New York City. It's not one of the 5 boroughs. That kind of mistake. It's not realizing that Teaneck, New Jersey, or Passaic, New Jersey, either of them are 15 minutes from Manhattan, but thinking they are part of New York because they're part of Greater New York. It's not that kind of mistake. It's messing up Miami and San Francisco. That means you have no clue. Do you understand the difference? So so that's very interesting. They have and that's Bethlehem. So that is correct. And that you'll see in 1 Samuel chapter 17. So it's explicit in Tanakh that Bethlehem is the city in which King David was born. You see, my dear friends, we're not, Matthew made a mistake and he got the wrong Zechariah. It's a mistake. It's true. The interesting is the thing from a scholar's perspective is, and Luke corrected Matthew. That's much more interesting.